Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to Gamerjoob, and welcome back to our Five Nights at Freddy's character concept series. So in this series, we'll be taking a look at the possible characters we could see from the newly announced game, Secret of the Mimic. And the first character that we're looking into is Circus Freddy. But before we start this video, I just want to give a big disclaimer that this is not officially what will happen in Secret of the Mimic. This is simply just a made up story and a chance to explore some cool concept characters and ideas. And yes, I am aware that some things mentioned in this video might not really match up with the current timeline, but just keep in mind this is all for fun and we hope you enjoy the video. But alrighty, with that all out of the way, let's get into the character concept for Circus Freddy. So recently, Steel Wool Studios released a teaser trailer for their new game titled Secret of the Mimic. In this teaser trailer, we can see a large ornate box playing the original music theme for the puppet. And out of this box emerges a creepy clown version of the Mimic. Although this teaser trailer didn't show much, it leaves a lot of questions and intrigue, that's for sure. At the end of the teaser, we see the year 1979, so it's safe to assume that this game will take place in that year and teach us more about the origins of this mysterious mimic. Although their lore has been covered in the books, it seems like we'll be learning much more about them in this game. But now that just leaves the question of where this game will take place and who its characters will be. Multiple clues leading up to this teaser trailer lead us to believe that this new game will take place at a circus. Some of these clues have been the hidden characters in the Ruined DLC, this new clown version of the Mimic, and the most convincing of all is the Funko line of the circus-themed characters. We can see an awesome and unique clown/circus design for all the main animatronics. So it's safe to say that a circus being the main setting for this game wouldn't be impossible. And we'd like to think that this circus is called the Fall Fest Carnival. This would be a large circus/carnival area filled with many fun attractions for all ages. But the main and most exciting attraction of all would be the animatronic characters that dwell in the circus grounds. Each character would have their own unique personality and role at the circus, and they would walk around and entertain all the visitors day after day. Since Fall Fest opened in 1970, the circus has been operating for 9 years now. And now that the date is 1979, many things have happened throughout those years. But we'll reveal those moments in time as we go forward. But for now, let's introduce our first animatronic character at the Fall Fest Circus. So our first character will be Circus Freddy. Circus Freddy's design is that of a friendly clown. With his blue vest, oversized bow, and bright red nose, he brings joy to all the visitors at the carnival. Whenever someone sees his happy clown face, they can't help but smile. But as the years went by, that happy smile became quite unnerving. So how exactly do the Fall Fest animatronics work? Well, let's head over to the repair tent and find out. So majority of the animatronics are comprised of a few components. Underneath their soft material skin is a simplistic endoskeleton design. These designs were quite bulky and very heavy. Their movement and operation was quite slow compared to the animatronics we see in the future pizzerias. So on top of these primitive old school endos was their material skin. So the 1970s Fall Fest characters were simply a material mascot suit that was fitted over the endo. Majority of the mascots didn't have moving mouths, so their facial expression would simply stay as it was. So that about does it for the general design and workings for Circus Freddy and his friends. But now we'll take a look at Freddy's role at the circus. Aside from performing in the daily show with the whole gang, Circus Freddy could mainly be found near the carnival games and prizes. He'd be there to encourage all the guests to play as many games and win as many prizes as possible. But little did the visitors know that most of the carnival games were rigged and there wasn't much chance of winning anything. But regardless of that, Circus Freddy was considered to be one of the most popular characters at Fall Fest. The visitors adored him and the owner was quite pleased with him as well. But unfortunately, in this 9-year span at the circus, the joy and laughter could only last for so long. Incident after incident left this place feeling like a shadow of its former self. And unfortunately, Circus Freddy would fall victim to this dark presence. So, not much is known about what happened to Circus Freddy. One minute he was fine, and the next he wasn't. The night guard found him in the repair tent all withered and torn up. His material skin was torn to shreds and it loosely draped over his endoskeleton. His face sagged down so much it made his eyes look hollow and empty. As far as the night guard was concerned, after the grounds were locked up past midnight, no intruders were detected. The only thing they can recall is hearing a certain melody throughout the carnival. It was only faint, but they could definitely hear it. It was almost like someone was playing a music box. But regardless, the staff couldn't have Circus Freddy roaming around like this. So they decided to store him in the repair tent until they could get him all fixed up. These material costumes weren't easy to come by and definitely weren't cheap. So the repair tent would be Circus Freddy's new home for the time being. But as soon as the clock struck midnight and Fall Fest was all locked up, that's when things would get very strange. So now, let's get into the gameplay segment of the video. So the player would take on the role of the night guard. They'd be able to freely roam around the circus at night. And as the guard, they would need to perform a number of specific tasks to complete their job. They'd have until 6 AM to make sure this list is complete. It seems easy enough, but they would soon realise it wouldn't be as simple as they first thought. So their first job on their list was to ensure the front gate was locked tight. So the player will make their way over to the entrance and lock the gate. Okay, the gate is locked. Now for task number 2, store away and lock up all the prizes. Seems simple enough, but when the player arrives at the carnival game area, they see something quite strange. It was Circus Freddy. Somehow he's managed to get out of the repair tent. Scattered at his feet were a number of ripped and shredded stuffed animal prizes. He continues to just stand there and stare at the player. Did Circus Freddy do all this? Why on earth would he destroy all these toys? The look on his face was quite unnerving, and things got a lot creepier when Circus Freddy started advancing towards the player. They slowly back up as Circus Freddy advances towards them. With this large, heavy animatronic bear lumbering towards them, they had no other option but to quickly hide in the prize storage locker. Once they hide themselves inside, they can see Circus Freddy is searching around for them. The player sees Circus Freddy approach a wooden cutout prop and tear off its arms and head. What has come over him? Why would he do this? Regardless, the player needs to avoid Circus Freddy at all costs. Otherwise, they'd end up just like that wooden cutout. When the coast was clear, the night guard would exit the locker and continue their tasks. Eventually, they would finish their list of jobs they needed to do, all while avoiding Circus Freddy in the process. Now they just need to roam around till 6 AM and their shift would be over. Whenever Circus Freddy would be close by, the player would need to run and hide. But they'd need to be careful, because if they don't make it in time to a hiding spot, then they'd be greeted with a jump scare that would end it all. Speaking of characters, let's introduce the next circus mascot now. So the next character is Circus Bonnie. Circus Bonnie is a happy-go-lucky bunny rabbit who loves rides and excitement. His favourite ride in particular is the Ferris wheel. He's ridden it a couple of times now, and always enjoys being high up. But due to his endo's heavy weight, it's not advised that he rides on it anymore. Such weight on the ride can affect the internal mechanisms and gears. So nowadays, Bonnie just hangs out at the base of the Ferris wheel and greets the visitors as they get on and off the ride. All the passengers on the ride thoroughly enjoy Bonnie's friendly greetings. With his big floppy ears, red nose, and decorative frills, his appearance is very friendly and welcoming. One of Circus Bonnie's most notable features was the large bells dangling from his ears. Everyone would know he was close by when they heard the sound of the bells. So in the last video, we looked into the overall design of the circus animatronics. These early 1970s models were quite low tech. Basically, they were just a material costume that was fitted over an endoskeleton. These early day designed endos were quite simplistic in nature. There was no need for any sophisticated mechanisms since the characters don't have any moving mouths or eyes. The way in which they see is through the sensors in these eye-like sockets. The image is quickly bounced back and a basic description is relayed to the animatronic. As far as the circus was concerned, the animatronics worked perfectly fine. They were able to identify visitors and other characters that were in their field of view. Most of the time what they saw and picked up on their visual senses was around 90% accurate. But Circus Bonnie wouldn't always be working at full capacity, especially after his tragic incident. Just as Circus Freddy suffered a terrible fate, so would Circus Bonnie. Once again, another mysterious incident happened after hours. The night guard was doing their rounds when they came across a terrible sight. For some strange reason, Circus Bonnie was caught up against the gear mechanism for the Ferris wheel. The constant movement of all the wheels and gears has torn away at most of the fabric on his body. There was no way for the night guard to lift Circus Bonnie off the gears due to his body being incredibly heavy. So instead the night guard had to slowly disconnect and shut down the motor that ran the Ferris wheel. After all was said and done, Circus Bonnie was left in a terrible state. How could this happen once again? The night guard was on high alert after what happened to Circus Freddy, and they can't believe they failed to keep guard twice in a row. Regardless, they managed to haul Circus Bonnie back to the repair tent. It seems that Circus Freddy isn't here at the moment. He's probably in another area somewhere around the circus. On closer inspection, Circus Bonnie has suffered some major damage. It seems that his optics have been destroyed and he can only rely on sound. Hopefully the repair crew can get him back to his usual self in no time. But for the moment, Circus Bonnie will stay in the repair tent. Hopefully he doesn't start roaming around like Circus Freddy did last time. But regardless of all that, the night guard has a job to do, and it's got to be done by 6 AM or else they can kiss this job goodbye. So now let's get to the gameplay segment of the video. So just like last time, the player needs to finish their checklist of all the jobs that need to be completed. The player would be able to freely roam around the circus and complete each job. Some would be the same as last time and others would be different. But now they would need to complete these tasks with 2 animatronic characters hunting them down. Whenever they would encounter Circus Freddy, they would need to run and hide. But when it comes to Circus Bonnie, that would be a different situation. Now that he has lost his visual senses, he'll only be able to track down the player by sound. So whenever Circus Bonnie appears, they would need to be as quiet as possible. But one way they can get past him is by distracting him with throwable items. The player would just need to pick up an item and throw it in the other direction. Hopefully Circus Bonnie would pick up the sound and go chase after it. This would give the player enough time to walk around the circus and complete their tasks, but they would need to be quick because not only are the animatronics working against them, but the clock is as well. One task in particular that would be tricky is restarting the Ferris wheel motor. This would make a lot of sound and attract Circus Bonnie. The player would need to keep looping around and avoiding Bonnie and getting back to the motor. But eventually the checklist would be completed and now they just need to survive until 6 AM. Even though the list is done, they mustn't let their guard down, because if they do even for a second, they'll be greeted with a deadly jump scare. So the next mascot we're introducing is Circus Chica. Circus Chica is a bright and happy chicken who loves to eat. Her design is also very colourful and fun. She can be seen sporting pink leggings, a bright green skirt, fun vest and tie, and a big crazy hairstyle and party hat. As it was previously stated, Circus Chica loves food, so much so that she's the proud mascot of Chica's Snack Shack. This was the area of the circus that sold all the food and drinks to all the visitors. Some of Chica's favourite snacks are cotton candy, popcorn, french fries, and ice cream. But of course, she couldn't actually eat any of these foods. With the 1970s mascots not having mouths, the workers would often find food crammed up against the endoskeleton's faceplate. Day after day, they would need to clean up Chica's messy endo. It was almost like she wanted a functioning mouth, just so she could eat and chew all the food. But with the endo's solid faceplate, that just wasn't an option. So instead, she'd just have to be happy serving all the visitors and handing out the sweet treats. But aside from working at the snack shack, Chica would also perform in The Daily Show with Circus Freddy and Bonnie. All three of them put on a show for all the guests. Each character would have their own gimmick and talent. Circus Freddy would juggle multiple items, Circus Bonnie would balance himself on tightropes and other objects, and Chica would put on more of a clown and circus routine. She would use her funny squirt bottle and spray the audience and the other members of the act. Since the animatronics were built quite solid, getting wet really wasn't an issue. So the Daily Circus act with the three mascot characters was a smash success. Some would say out of all the games, rides, and food, the circus act is really what they enjoyed the most. So overall, Circus Chica was considered to be a great character at Fall Fest. But as it always is with these poor animatronics, the joy and happiness would eventually come to a tragic end. One by one, each of the mascot characters were getting picked off to be terribly damaged and corrupted. And whatever mysterious presence is causing these incidents now has their eye on Circus Chica. And little did she know, she was about to have her one wish granted in all the wrong ways. So now we return back to the Night Guard. They've been on high alert ever since Circus Freddy and Bonnie were severely damaged. They didn't want this tragic outcome to happen to any of the other mascots. So the Night Guard didn't let Circus Chica out of their sights. But they couldn't do this forever. Eventually they would need to complete their list of jobs before the night was over. So with that in mind, they decided to do the next best thing. They placed Circus Chica inside a storage room and barricaded the door shut. Surely nothing was getting inside, but they'd have to wait and see as the night went on. So as always, the Night Guard completed their first task of locking the front gates. After they crossed off that job, that's when they heard a loud crash. There was no way. Surely something couldn't have happened to Circus Chica already. They were only gone for a couple of minutes. Regardless, they need to rush over and investigate. When they arrived, the door was ripped clean off its hinges. And as they aimed their flashlight, that's when they saw her. What on earth has happened to Circus Chica? Her body was ripped and torn all over. But the most disturbing thing of all was her face. Her animatronic endo head has been split in two. It's almost like she now has a makeshift mouth. And inside this mouth were jagged shards of metal. They almost resemble teeth. What on earth could have done this to Chica? Whatever it was, will stop at nothing to destroy and corrupt all of the mascots. Regardless, the Night Guard's shift was over and they needed to put Chica back in a safe place. Hopefully tomorrow night she won't be hunting down the Night Guard like all the others. But they won't know until tomorrow. So before they know it, their next shift has started. Before they start their shift, the Night Guard thought it would be best to check on Circus Chica. And just as they suspected, Chica was nowhere to be seen. They had a bad feeling about this, but they need to get their job done before the night is over. So they went about doing all of their assigned jobs. And it didn't take long for Circus Chica to appear. With her new mouth filled with sharp metal, she looked like she was ready to take a bite out of the Night Guard. And for all they know, that's exactly what she had in mind. So the player would need to avoid Circus Chica at all costs. If they let her get too close, then it would be all over. Whenever they see her, they would need to have a special item at the ready. The player would equip some of the cotton candy from the snack shack. They would then need to throw it towards Circus Chica and she would eat it. But the sticky cotton candy would get stuck in Chica's metal mouth. She'd spend a few moments trying to get rid of the sugary mess. This would act like a sort of stun ability and give the player a few more moments to get away. But they would need to use them sparingly. There was only so much cotton candy and they can easily run out. And if they did run out, they would need to do their best to survive. Because if they weren't careful, then they'd be greeted with a deadly jump scare. So the next character we're introducing is Circus Foxy. Meet Circus Foxy, the sad clown fox who struggles with the art of inflating balloons and crafting balloon animals. Despite his colourful and vibrant appearance, Circus Foxy often finds himself quite deflated. His big, sad eyes reflect his inner struggle as he tries his best to entertain, but often ends up with floppy balloons and misshapen animals. His inability to bring joy through his balloon creations is due to one flaw in particular. Majority of the time his inner workings are faulty and defective. Circus Foxy's inner endoskeleton is quite different to all of his friends. This special edition is an inbuilt air compressor that is meant for blowing up balloons. The tank would fill up with air and send it through a hose that was connected to Foxy's fingers. Foxy would just need to place the balloons on his fingers and watch them inflate. But this process rarely worked due to the faulty air compressor. It would always leak air or build up way too much pressure inside the tank. This led to Foxy making some really deflated and lame balloons. The circus repair workers have been meaning to fix this tank for quite a while now, but not too many people would actually go to Circus Foxy for balloons. It got to the point where the circus workers would just inflate the balloons themselves and give them to all the guests. Seeing all the workers do something better than what he was actually designed for made Circus Foxy quite sad. Eventually he would grow resentful of all the workers who would blow up balloons better than him. After all, that was his job, but because they refused to fix the air compressor, it wasn't really his fault. But the workers would soon realise that not fixing this air compressor would end up being one of their biggest mistakes. So this time around, Circus Foxy's tragic incident happened during the opening hours at the circus. Not many of the workers knew exactly what happened that day, but all they do know is that Circus Foxy wasn't the only one caught up in this tragic mishap. This disastrous event took place in the balloon room. This was the area where Circus Foxy was supposed to inflate and make all the special balloons. But since he wasn't able to perform his task, it just became the storage room for all the balloon supplies. But one day, all the balloon inflating workers were called to the balloon room for a special meeting. All the workers involved reported getting a strange call on their walkie-talkies. They said the voice sounded familiar and told them to all go to the balloon room. When they arrived, there was no one there. The only one there was Circus Foxy, but he looked quite strange. His mascot suit was all dirty and worn, and there was also a large sewn up incision down his body. All they could hear was a low hissing sound, almost like it was escaping air. Then, all of a sudden, Circus Foxy's air compressor tank had ruptured, injuring everyone in the room. There were no fatal casualties, but many of the workers were badly injured. But as the fog of the compressed air cleared, they could all see what happened to Circus Foxy. The internal explosion has completely torn away all of the lower half of his mascot suit. His endoskeleton survived, but it was severely damaged. After the injured workers were tended to, then they stored away Circus Foxy somewhere safe. The circus has no idea how this could have happened. Many suspect it was just an accident due to the faulty compressor. But some think that this was the work of a nefarious individual. And the worker who was most convinced of all was the night guard. As they return back for another night shift, they prepare for the worst. With another damaged endo on the loose, this just means more trouble for them. They just got to get through the night and complete their job, but something tells them this won't be so easy. So now let's get to the gameplay segment of the video. The player once again takes on the role of the night guard. They would need to roam around the circus and complete a series of jobs. But with all the corrupted animatronics walking around, this wouldn't be so easy. So the main job for tonight is to gather up all the scattered pieces of Circus Foxy's costume. The explosion sent shreds of material all over the circus. They would need to collect all the pieces before their shift was over, but they need to keep an eye out for Circus Foxy. The way that Circus Foxy was stalking the night guard was almost like he thought they were responsible for his incident. Come to think of it, all the characters were acting like it was the night guard's fault, but that can't be. They've been the only one trying to save them. But regardless, their job needs to get done and the night has just begun. So piece by piece, the night guard collects the shreds of Circus Foxy. When the player sees him, they'd need to constantly shine their flashlight in his eyes. As long as the flashlight is in Circus Foxy's eyes, he won't move. But as soon as the player turns their back, he'll start running towards them. The safest option would be to back away slowly whilst always having the light pointed at his eyes. But when the flashlight runs out of battery or starts flashing, that's when things could get dangerous. If the player makes it to another area, then they should be safe. But if they forget to shine the light at Circus Foxy, then they'll be in for a frightening jump scare. Throughout this story, each of the animatronic characters have been terribly damaged and disfigured. The Night Guard has been trying to solve the mystery of what's been happening and who's behind all of this. So far they've been trying to survive as all the other characters are now out to get them. But the mystery behind these attacks and the Fall Fest Circus will be revealed before they know it. Because there was still one other character that they haven't met yet. It's someone who's been lurking in the shadows right behind the Night Guard's back. And now it's about time they made their presence known. So the next character that we're introducing is known as the Clown. The Clown goes by quite a few different names. He's been nicknamed the Mimic Clown, the Copy Clown, the Copycat Clown, and the Shadow Clown. All these names are due to the fact that the Mimic Clown has the ability to copy movements of other people. The Clown was by far the most advanced animatronic at the Fall Fest Circus. His endoskeleton was made up of multiple motors and servos that could move his joints and limbs in many different ways. But the most impressive feature by far was the Clown's mimic ability. The way in which the ability worked was all in his eyes. The Clown was fitted with special eye sensors that can scan an individual. Once this scan was completed, the Clown could now mimic the movements of the individual. At the time, this was considered quite impressive, and all the workers and circus staff definitely thought so as well. The Mimic Clown was bound to be Fall Fest's most exciting attraction to date. It was predicted that people from all over the country would travel to the circus just to see him. And they'd better, because this thing wasn't cheap. The owner of the circus didn't say who they bought it off, but almost half the year's funds went into this attraction alone. And with this new advanced Mimic Clown at their circus, they were sure to make a fortune. But sadly, that never really happened. In fact, a lot of the guests and visitors never really saw the Clown. This was due to all the technical troubles that plagued his inner workings. As hard as the workers tried, the Clown's mimic ability never truly worked, and even in some specific instances, it proved to be quite dangerous. So with these mechanical mishaps, the circus had no choice but to store the Clown away until they could iron out all these problems. But it turns out this was all an act. There wasn't really anything wrong with the Clown's mimic ability. He simply didn't want to be put on show at the circus. He'd rather stay hidden away and blend in with the background. The Clown never wanted to be the main attraction. He had other plans in mind for this circus and its happy animatronics. But now we return back to the Night Guard. It's 6 AM and they've just finished their shift. It was strange, but it seems like when the clock hit 6 AM, all the animatronics shut down and no longer chased them. But as they were finishing up their shift for the night, they heard something quite interesting. It was the sound of a music box. They've only heard this melody once before. It was on the first night when Circus Freddy was attacked. The sound seemed to be echoing from down the hall. The guard followed this strange melody all the way down and behind the curtains. And that's when they saw it. It was in fact a large music box. They've never seen this thing before. As they got a little closer to inspect it, they were greeted with quite the scare. The Clown erupted from the music box. He almost caused the Night Guard to have a heart attack. So this must be the rumoured special animatronic that the circus had hidden away. This thing gave the Night Guard the creeps. It's almost like it was staring directly into their soul. They wondered why this animatronic was never shown off with all the others. Apparently it had a number of problems and was deemed too faulty. As they were inspecting this creepy clown, they noticed something quite odd. Inside the box was a security guard uniform. How did this get in there? As far as they were concerned, they were the only Night Guard that was currently working at the circus. If that was true, then how did this get in here? Regardless, they took the uniform back to the repair room and ended their shift. The next night they returned early before their shift had started. There was just something that the Night Guard couldn't forget. What was that uniform doing with the Clown? That Clown didn't sit right with them. They found it extremely odd and wanted to figure out what was going on. something felt very wrong about this clown. They were going to check out the memory banks from all the animatronics to see what they could find. They usually wouldn't do this on account of all the characters trying to attack them, but it's before midnight, so they should be in their dormant state. So with all the animatronics, you can access their memory banks and see what they've been observing. The slide images can be projected from their eyes and show the recorded memory. So they manually dialed back Circus Freddy's memory back to the night of the incident. And sure enough, their suspicions were correct. It was the Mimic Clown. He was the one behind all these mysterious attacks. He was dressed as a night guard, so it would confuse all the mascots. So that's why they were all after the night guard. They must have all thought it was them who lashed out and attacked them one by one. This devious clown framed the night guard in order to carry out their plan. But why? Why would they want to do this in the first place? Who knows what was wrong with this thing? For all they know, they could... All of a sudden, the clown ripped right through the projector screen and tried to attack the night guard. Now that they've solved the mystery behind all these attacks, they can't have them escaping this circus alive. The player quickly makes a run for it to the main tent, and the Mimic Clown quickly follows after them. The player now finds themselves in the main stage area of the main tent. The Mimic Clown has followed them inside and is now desperate to destroy them. They swipe at the night guard, but they dodge at the last second. The Mimic Clown instead breaks one of the main support poles of the tent. Suddenly, this gives the player an idea. If they can get the Mimic Clown to strike the rest of the support poles, then maybe they can trap him inside. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was worth a shot. So in the clown's blind rage, he kept chasing after the guard and swiping at them with his strong metal claws. Each time he was accidentally breaking the main support poles. And one by one, the structure of the tent was getting weaker. Suddenly, with one final attack, the last support pole was broken. The tent starts to collapse and fall from above. The player quickly leaps out of the tent as it collapses. And ironically, the Fall Fest tent falls down on the Mimic Clown. The sheer mass of all the metal, wood and fabric buries him inside. The sparks from his malfunctioning body set the collapsed tent on fire. Now trapped in a fiery tomb of his own making, the Mimic Clown is left to burn up with the fallen tent. Finally, it was all over. The night guard survived the last night and put an end to this terrible clown. Now that it's been destroyed, it won't harm any more of the mascot characters ever again. As they stare at the burning tent, the night guard has come to realise they've totally lost their job. But as long as that creepy Mimic Clown has been destroyed, that's all that truly mattered. Alrighty everyone, well that was the ending for chapter 1 of the Circus arc. We hope you all enjoyed the stories we had to tell, and we can't wait to share all the new circus stories we have for chapter 2, so be sure to stay tuned for the next video. But as always, do be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the Mimic Clown and also part 1 of the Circus arc overall. But alrighty everyone, until we start part 2, we'll see you in the next one, bye.